Have you ever rushed into your day without praying, only to feel overwhelmed before noon? What if the peace you're craving is waiting in the first quiet moment you give to God? Starting your day with prayer doesn't just change your morning, it changes everything. What's the very first thing that crosses your mind when you open your eyes in the morning? Is it the barrage of tasks waiting for you, the unanswered messages, the responsibilities you haven't even begun to touch? Maybe it's the weight of yesterday still lingering, or the pressure of today already starting to build. In the blur of alarms and to-do lists, it's easy to start our day in a hurry, moving before pausing, reacting before praying. And yet, right there in that small window between sleep and motion, a sacred invitation awaits. Talk to God first. Before the chaos, before the newsfeed, before the coffee, pray. It seems like such a simple thing, a moment of stillness, a whisper of thanks. But that moment holds power, not because it changes our schedule, but because it realigns our spirit. Gratitude isn't just a pleasant emotion, it's a declaration. It tells heaven and earth, I see what I've been given, and I know where it came from. When you choose to begin your day in gratitude, you shift everything. Your mood, your mindset, your momentum. Because suddenly, your focus is not on what's missing, but on what's already been given. And the most beautiful part? You don't need a perfect morning routine or a quiet mountaintop to do it. You just need a moment, a breath, a sentence. Thank you, Lord. That's all it takes to open your heart to the presence of the one who already walks beside you. You don't have to wait for the worship music or for your feet to hit the floor. Your first thought can be a prayer, even before your first step. And why does this matter? Because how you start your day shapes how you live it. If the first thing you do is panic over your list, chances are you'll carry that anxiety all day. But if the first thing you do is surrender your day, your thoughts, and your plans to God, then you're no longer walking alone. You're inviting Him into every decision, every conversation, every detour. This isn't about being overly spiritual or legalistic. It's about recognizing that your soul was designed for communion, not just on Sunday, but in the sacred seconds of your everyday life. When you begin with prayer, you acknowledge that your strength isn't enough, your wisdom isn't complete, your agenda isn't the final say, and that humility, that opens the door to divine guidance. We often think of gratitude in grand gestures, big miracles, major blessings, but what about the breath you just took? The warmth of sunlight slipping through your curtains, the body that rose from sleep, the chance to begin again? Every one of those is a miracle, a gift, a reminder that the giver is still near, still watching, still working. Yet in our hurry, we overlook these graces. We wake up and immediately step into performance mode, achieve, accomplish, check the boxes, and somewhere along the way our peace gets left behind, traded for pressure. But what if you stopped, just for a moment, and began your day differently? What if you whispered thank you before you whispered I'm late? This is the invitation. Don't let the world speak to you before God does. Don't let anxiety be your first voice. Let His voice meet you in the morning. Let it speak peace over your mind. Let it anchor your heart before the demands of the day pull you in a dozen directions. And no, this doesn't mean your day will be perfect, but it does mean you'll be prepared. Because prayer doesn't erase problems, it prepares you for them. It doesn't remove challenges, it repositions your heart to face them with faith instead of fear. When you start your day with God, you carry a different posture. You're not just surviving, you're aligning. You're reminding your spirit that it was never meant to carry the day alone, that there's strength available, wisdom accessible, peace offered, if you simply ask. So tomorrow morning, before your feet touch the floor, take that moment. Just one. Turn your thoughts toward heaven and say, God, thank you for this day. Walk with me through it. It doesn't need to be eloquent. It just needs to be real, honest, intentional. That small act, that heartbeat of prayer is more powerful than you realize. Because when you start your day in His presence, you're not just preparing for what's coming, you're anchoring in the one who already knows. You're saying, I trust you more than my plans. I lean on you more than my own strength. I want you more than I want control. And that kind of beginning, it leads to a different kind of day. One where peace isn't tied to outcomes. One where joy doesn't depend on results. one where your spirit is calm, even if your schedule isn't. That's the gift of morning prayer. Not just that it blesses the first part of your day, but that it builds a foundation for the rest of it. So as you prepare to move forward today, remember, you don't need perfect circumstances to experience perfect peace. You just need to begin in the presence of the one who holds all things together, including you. There's something profoundly grounding about beginning your day in conversation with God. It's not about rituals or routines, it's about relationship. When you wake up and immediately invite His presence into your mind, your spirit finds a calm that nothing else can provide. That short prayer, even if only a few words, sets the spiritual rhythm for everything that follows. It becomes a declaration: God, I need you today. I trust you more than I trust myself. You're not just opening your day, you're opening your heart. Prayer is not about using the perfect words. It's about posture. It's about surrender. It's about choosing to give God your attention before the world steals it away. When you pause, even briefly, you are making room for divine alignment, where your thoughts, emotions, and actions are brought under His guidance. And that alignment can make the difference between a day led by peace and a day led by pressure. When you pray first, you make space for clarity, for wisdom, for quiet strength that moves through the chaos. Because let's be honest, life is not predictable. You may plan every hour, but unexpected detours will still come. And it's in those moments that prayer shows its true power. It steadies your heart, it reframes your mindset, it reminds you that you are not doing life alone. The moment you begin to see prayer not as a task, but as a connection, everything changes. It no longer feels like a duty, it becomes a desire. You start to crave that stillness, that sacred exchange. And soon, your day doesn't feel right without it, because you've tasted what it's like to walk in alignment with heaven, and nothing else compares. One of the most transformative aspects of morning prayer is the shift in perspective. Instead of waking up and immediately thinking about all the things that could go wrong, you begin to see everything as opportunity. Not in a superficial, overly optimistic way, but in a deeply spiritual way. You recognize that every moment, even the difficult ones, are laced with God's presence and purpose. You start noticing the blessings that often go unnoticed. The sunrise outside your window, the breath in your lungs, the ability to move, to think, to love, to try again. These aren't small things, they're daily miracles. And prayer is what helps you see them. It also prepares you for the people you'll encounter. Whether it's a coworker, a family member, or a stranger, prayer makes you more patient, more present, more gracious. Because you've already spent time with the one who embodies all those qualities, and now His Spirit flows through you. When challenges arise, and they will, you won't be shaken the same way. Your reactions won't come from a place of anxiety, but from a place of assurance. You've already centered yourself. You've already invited God to go before you. And because of that, you can respond with wisdom, not impulse, peace, not panic. Prayer also cultivates humility. It reminds you that you are not the source of your strength, that no matter how capable or talented or driven you are, you need guidance, you need grace. And when you begin your day acknowledging that truth, you posture your heart to receive everything God wants to give you. This doesn't mean every day will be perfect, but it does mean that you'll carry peace through the imperfections. You'll navigate the noise with discernment. You'll recognize that your worth is not determined by how much you get done, but by who you belong to. And that identity, child of God, grounds you more than any title, task, or accomplishment ever could. One of the most beautiful truths about prayer is that it's not one-sided. It's not just you talking into the air, hoping someone hears. It's you leaning into a divine exchange, speaking and listening, asking and trusting. You begin to develop a sensitivity to God's voice, a recognition of His presence in the quiet nudges, in the unexpected peace, in the moments when you should be overwhelmed, but you're not. That's the fruit of consistency. When you choose to pray before you plan, when you choose surrender before strategy, you position yourself for a life marked by faith rather than fear. And over time, something else happens. Prayer becomes instinct. Not just a moment in the morning, but a rhythm throughout your day. You begin to pray while you're driving, while you're working, while you're doing ordinary things. It becomes your inner dialogue, and suddenly your whole life becomes infused with sacred awareness. You realize that God is not just in the morning, He's in every moment that follows, because you've invited Him there. And so you move differently, not with haste, but with intention. Not in stress, but in strength. Not trying to control every outcome, but trusting the one who holds it all. That's the power of praying first. That's the gift of putting God before the grind. So tomorrow, when you wake up, don't reach for your phone. Reach for His presence. Speak, even if softly. Listen, even if briefly. And let that moment shape every moment that comes next. Because when you begin with God, you end with peace. And there's no better way to live. Starting your day in prayer also teaches you something invaluable: how to listen before you lead. Too often we approach our mornings with urgency, already strategizing and solving before we've even taken a breath. But prayer teaches us to pause. It gently reminds us that the most powerful way to move forward isn't to rush, but to align. To align your spirit with the voice of God before you let the world dictate your pace. There's a spiritual discipline in saying, "Lord, I need your voice before I use mine." That kind of surrender quiets the noise. It steadies the soul. It prepares your heart to lead from love, not from fear. Because prayer is more than a request. It's a release of control, of anxiety, of pressure. When you pray before you perform, you remember you're not defined by performance. And the more you make that a habit, the more you begin to notice how God meets you in the little things, in the way a conversation unfolds, in the strength that comes when you didn't think you had any left, in the peace that fills a room where stress used to reign. Prayer makes you aware, not just of God's presence, but of His power at work in places you might have once called ordinary. Sometimes the greatest change is internal. It's not that the circumstances shift, it's that you do. The day might still be hard, the inbox still full, the decisions still uncertain, but your heart, it's anchored. Your perspective, clear. Your posture, calm. Not because the world got easier, but because your spirit got centered. You stop overreacting to delays. You stop personalizing criticism. You stop spiraling over things you can't control. And it's not because you've suddenly become invincible. It's because you've become intentional. You've invited the Holy Spirit to take the lead before you ever left the house. And that choice, that surrender, becomes the foundation you stand on for the rest of the day. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking you'll find time to pray later. After the meeting, after the kids are off to school, after the rush settles. But the truth is, there will always be something after. Life doesn't pause just so we can find our peace. We have to choose to start in peace. To lead with prayer, not squeeze it in as a last resort. Because when prayer is the first thing, it becomes the filter for everything else. How you speak, how you plan, how you respond when things go wrong, and how you recover when you feel weak. It also reminds you that you're never alone. That whatever this day brings, joyful or painful, you're walking through it with someone who knows the beginning, middle, and end. Someone who's already in your tomorrow and still cares about your now. That kind of presence redefines your definition of strength. It's not in how much you can carry, it's in who carries you. There will always be distractions. There will always be reasons to skip that morning prayer. But there will also always be fruit when you don't. The days you begin in the presence of God don't magically become easier, but they do become deeper, more meaningful, more peaceful. Because your roots are not in the moment, they're in the eternal. You'll start to crave that stillness, to long for that pause. Not because it's routine, but because it's refuge. It's home for your spirit, a shelter before the storm, a breath before the battle. And once you taste the difference it makes, you won't want to start a day without it. So don't wait for the perfect morning. Don't wait until you feel holy enough or ready enough. Just begin, right where you are, with the words you have. Invite Him in. Let the Creator of time be the first one you meet with each day, not just because He's worthy, but because He's willing to guide you, strengthen you, walk with you. Because when you pray first, you don't just prepare for your day, you prepare for your purpose. And every step you take after that, it's no longer rushed, it's no longer fearful, it's rooted in the one who goes before you and stands behind you. And that's where real peace begins. When you begin to pray first each morning, something subtle but profound begins to happen. You begin to see the day not as a burden but as a blessing. Not because the tasks become fewer or the challenges disappear, but because your vision changes. You no longer look at your schedule with dread, but with divine expectancy. You begin to ask, God, what do you want to show me today? Who do you want me to bless? Where are you already at work, and how can I join you? That shift is everything. Because when your day is no longer about just surviving, but about participating in something sacred, every moment takes on new meaning. The interruptions, now opportunities. The delays, now divine appointments. The struggles, now a classroom where grace is taught. This is what prayer unlocks. Not a perfect day, but a purposeful one. We often assume that prayer is meant for the moments of crisis, the hospital rooms, the heavy decisions, the desperate pleas. But what if it's also meant for the morning silence, the small choices, the everyday emotions we don't even know how to name? What if prayer is not our last line of defense, but our first act of love? Because it is. When you start your day in prayer, you are loving God first. You are loving yourself enough to seek peace before pressure. You are loving others before you've even seen them. By preparing your heart to meet them with kindness instead of impatience, grace instead of exhaustion, prayer becomes preparation. Not just for meetings or traffic or emails, but for moments of compassion, of wisdom, of courage. You never know what a day will hold. But God does. And when you begin with Him, He begins preparing you. Not always with immediate answers, but with assurance. A quiet confidence that whatever unfolds, you won't walk through it alone. And that assurance carries you through the conversation you were dreading, through the choice you didn't think you were strong enough to make, through the emotions that used to derail you. Because your anchor was set long before the waves came. Some mornings, the words will come easily. Other times, all you'll have is a sigh, a tear, a whisper. But prayer doesn't require perfection, just presence. Just the willingness to pause and open your heart. And in doing that, you make room for peace, for direction, for strength that is not your own. And this daily act, it forms you. Over time, you become more patient, more focused, more aware of how God moves. You start to see how often He speaks, in the stillness in the Scripture, in the way your spirit is stirred just when you need it most. You begin to trust that prayer is not about getting God to move your way, but about positioning your life to move His way. That's why the habit matters. It's not just spiritual maintenance, it's soul transformation. You begin to lead from a different place. You listen before reacting. You discern before deciding. You slow down not to fall behind, but to walk in step with the Spirit. And the fruit of that is not just inner peace, it's outer impact. The people around you begin to notice something different. Your presence becomes a refuge. Your words carry weight. Not because you're perfect, but because you've been with the one who is. And that connection shows. Prayer, before anything else, is how we step into identity before we step into activity. It reminds us we are not defined by what we do, but by who we belong to. Before the performance, before the hustle, before the expectations of the world, there's a God who already sees you, already knows you, and already loves you fully. And when you know that, really know it, your day unfolds differently. You don't chase approval, you walk in assurance. You don't carry shame, you move in grace. You don't fear the unknown, you trust the one who holds tomorrow. So whatever your morning looks like, quiet, chaotic, hurried, slow, let it begin with prayer, with intention, with a heart that says, God, I want you before I want anything else today. That's where peace begins. That's where strength is found. That's where your day turns from ordinary to holy, all because you prayed first. There's a reason Scripture tells us to acknowledge God in all our ways, because when we do, He truly does direct our path. And that direction often starts with the very first words you speak each morning. Before your day begins, before your feet hit the ground, prayer becomes the compass that points your heart toward what matters most. It grounds you, not in your agenda, but in God's. And that grounding is what makes the difference between reacting and responding. The more we center our mornings in God's presence, the more we're able to move through the day with clarity. Prayer has a way of uncluttering the heart. When your mind is full of worries, decisions, or doubt, That quiet conversation with the Lord clears the noise. It doesn't make the circumstances disappear, but it allows you to face them with fresh eyes and a settled spirit. That kind of peace can't be found in your inbox. It won't come from scrolling through social media or jumping straight into work mode. It only comes when you choose to center yourself in the one who knows the beginning from the end. When you begin your day in prayer, you're not just going through a ritual, you're entering into communion. You're reminding your soul that God is near, that He is listening, and that He cares about every detail of what lies ahead. Prayer also prepares your heart to receive. When you start your day by seeking God, you begin to notice how He shows up throughout the day. A kind word from a stranger, an idea that seems to come out of nowhere, the strength to remain calm in a moment that would have normally sent you spiraling. These are not accidents, they're answers. Responses to a heart that opened itself up to God's presence first. And this posture of surrender begins to form a habit of dependence. Not a weak kind of dependence, but one rooted in faith. You stop trying to control everything and start trusting more. You become less reactive and more reflective. You speak less from emotion and more from wisdom. Because your source is no longer your own understanding, but the wisdom you sought in the stillness of the morning. Prayer also reveals motives. Sometimes the quiet of the early morning is where God gently confronts us, not to shame, but to shape. He shows us where we've been striving, where we've been selfish, where we've allowed fear to dictate our pace. In those moments, prayer becomes the mirror. It reflects not just what we do, but why we do it. And in that reflection, God can lovingly shift our perspective. The beauty is, this isn't a one-time experience. It's a daily invitation. Each morning is a new opportunity to begin again. Not because you've failed, but because grace is always fresh. Every sunrise brings another chance to pause, to realign, to ask for strength, and to walk forward in step with the Spirit. Even on the days when time is short and your words are few, that one intentional moment, God, I need you today, is enough to open your heart and posture your spirit. He hears the whispers as clearly as He hears the eloquent prayers. Because it's not about perfection, it's about presence. As this practice becomes a rhythm, it weaves its way into every area of your life. You start to recognize how much more peaceful your mind is when it's been aligned with God first. You begin to see how decisions become clearer, relationships become more meaningful, and challenges become less intimidating when they're seen through the lens of prayer. This is the transformation that begins in a single choice: to pray before you do anything else. Eventually, morning prayer becomes more than just a habit. It becomes a home. A safe place where you return each day, not out of obligation, but out of deep desire. You long to meet God in those quiet moments, not because you want something from Him, but because you simply want Him. And that desire? That's where true change begins. When your heart starts craving God's presence before anything else, before emails, deadlines, news, or noise, that's when you know your soul is being led by something greater. That's when the day, no matter what it holds, becomes less about survival and more about sacred living. Because once you've talked to God first, everything else comes second. Your mind is clearer, your emotions are steadier, your words are gentler, your actions are more intentional. Not because you're stronger, but because you're surrendered. So as you rise tomorrow, don't wait for the right mood or the perfect silence. Just start, right where you are, in your own words. Invite God into your thoughts, your plans, your fears, your hopes. Give Him the first few minutes of your day, and you'll be amazed how the rest begins to change. Not always in circumstance, but always in spirit. That's the miracle of morning prayer. It doesn't just prepare you for the day, it prepares you to walk through it with God, and that makes all the difference. There will be days when your heart feels heavy before the sun even rises, days when your body wakes up before your spirit catches up, when you feel the weight of what's ahead before your feet touch the floor. It's in these moments, especially these moments, that beginning your day in prayer becomes your lifeline. Because prayer is not just a discipline, it's your refuge, your reminder, your restoration. When you pray first, you're not pretending the challenges don't exist. You're just choosing to meet them with God rather than without Him. You're not denying your emotions. you're surrendering them. You're not silencing your worries, you're placing them into the hands of the one who already knows how your day will unfold. This act of trust, repeated every morning, becomes the sacred rhythm that stabilizes your soul. Some days your prayer might be filled with gratitude and praise. Other days it might sound more like a sigh or a silent plea. But whether you come joyful or exhausted, full of faith or wrestling with doubt, God meets you there. He never turns away an honest heart. And the moment you speak his name, heaven leans in. Not because you're impressive, but because you're his. It's easy to fall into the pattern of waking up and immediately scrolling, checking, reacting. But those first moments of the day are some of the most powerful you'll ever have. They set the tone. They determine the flow. And when you fill them with prayer, you're not just inviting God into your day, you're inviting him to lead it. That leadership might look like strength in moments when you feel weak, or clarity in a conversation you've been dreading. It might look like patience when you're tempted to react, or peace when the unexpected interrupts your plans. And you'll know, deep down, that it wasn't just you, it was the fruit of a surrendered beginning. Prayer also creates space for correction. In the quiet of the morning, God will sometimes whisper truths that are hard but holy. He'll nudge you about your attitude, your words, your motives, not to shame you, but to shape you, because he loves you enough to speak truth where you need it most. That kind of correction is a gift, and when received with humility, it becomes the very thing that keeps your heart aligned all day long. Over time, this daily rhythm of prayer becomes less about routine and more about relationship. You no longer pray first because you have to. You pray first because you want to, because you know that meeting with God first makes every other meeting easier. That being seen by him first softens the ache of being misunderstood by others. That hearing his voice first quiets the noise of the world before it even begins. And the transformation isn't just internal, it's visible. People may not know your exact habits, but they'll see the calm in your eyes, the grace in your responses, the strength in your silence. They'll wonder how you stay so grounded, and maybe you'll tell them, I talk to God before I talk to anyone else. This is what it means to live a prayer-first life. It's not perfection, it's presence. It's not about checking a box, it's about opening a door. And through that door you'll find all the things your heart craves. Peace, wisdom, clarity, strength. They've been waiting for you, and they come when you wait on him. So if you're tired of starting your days in stress, frustration, or hurry, shift the start. Don't just reach for the phone or the calendar or the worry. Reach for God. Sit with him, even if only for a moment. Let your first breath of the day be holy. Let your first words be prayer. Because what begins with God will always be carried by God. And what he carries, he always completes. You don't need to have all the answers when you wake up in the morning. You don't need a 5-step plan or a burst of motivation to make the day meaningful. What you need, more than anything, is connection. A connection to the one who already knows what the day holds. A connection that grounds you not in your own strength, but in his. And that connection begins with prayer. There is a sacred stillness in the early morning that invites you to pause before the world starts spinning. It doesn't demand much, just your heart, just your attention, just your willingness to say, God, I give this day to you. That simple act shifts everything. It resets your perspective, it softens your edges, it steadies your breathing. Because you've chosen to root your first thoughts not in fear or deadlines or pressure, but in him. And when that becomes your daily beginning, something beautiful unfolds. You begin to live with expectation, not anxiety, with peace, not panic. You start looking for how God will show up, because you've already invited him in. You carry his presence into the room before you say a word. You make decisions with more clarity. You speak with more compassion. You move through conflict with more grace. Because prayer first doesn't just change how you start your day, it changes who you become in the middle of it. It's easy to think prayer is a luxury for quiet seasons or unhurried lives. But the truth is, the more chaotic your schedule, the more crucial it is to pray first. You can't afford to lead your day in your own strength. You weren't created to operate apart from the one who sustains you. And when you try, even with the best of intentions, you'll find yourself exhausted. discouraged, drained. But when you pause to pray, even briefly, you're drawing strength from a well that never runs dry. You're not just asking God to make your day easier, you're asking Him to make you stronger. Strong enough to forgive quickly, strong enough to listen deeply, strong enough to choose peace when conflict arises. And He will, because He never withholds what you need when you come to Him first. You'll also begin to notice how prayer filters your reactions. That moment when someone frustrates you, you respond with grace because you already spent the morning soaking in it. That unexpected obstacle in your path, it doesn't shake you like it used to because you already placed your plans in God's hands. This is the quiet miracle of praying first, the small invisible victories that no one sees, but you feel deeply. And gradually, prayer becomes less about what you say and more about how you see. You begin to recognize God in the little things, the smile from a stranger, the delayed appointment that turned into a blessing, the whisper in your heart that says, "I'm with you." Because when you start the day with Him, you begin to see Him everywhere. Eventually, prayer becomes your atmosphere. Not something you do once in the morning and forget, but something that lingers, breathes, covers you. You carry it into every room, into every task, into every moment of uncertainty. And it doesn't have to be long or loud, it just has to be first. Because when prayer comes first, peace follows. And where peace is present, purpose begins to flourish. The kind of purpose that doesn't burn you out, but lights you up. The kind of purpose that helps you walk boldly into unknowns, knowing that your steps are ordered. The kind of purpose that reminds you your time, your energy, your whole day is sacred. And it all begins with a whisper. So tomorrow morning, before anything else, whisper it again. God, I give you today. And then watch as He fills every hour that follows with grace, guidance, and the unshakable reminder that He's with you, always. You've heard it said before, put God first. But when that phrase becomes your practice, when it's more than a motto and actually becomes the way you move, your life begins to shift in ways you never expected. Prayer, at its core, is not about performance or perfection. It's about presence. It's about positioning your heart before God, before positioning yourself before the world. When you begin each day in prayer, you're making a statement, not just to yourself, but to heaven and hell. Today, I will not move without God. That doesn't mean every step will be flawless or that your plans won't change, but it does mean your heart will be anchored, your mind will be clearer, your spirit will be more sensitive to what truly matters. The world will still pull at you. The pressure won't disappear. The deadlines, the demands, the distractions, they'll all still be there. But you'll face them differently. Not with fear, but with focus. Not with anxiety, but with assurance. Not alone, but aligned. You'll notice yourself choosing peace over panic more often. Not because life is suddenly easier, but because you are stronger. You've been with the one who fills empty spaces and fortifies weary hearts, and that strength, it becomes your steady foundation. In time, others will see it in you. Not because you preach loudly, but because you live quietly, anchored, kind, focused, gracious. Your life will carry the aroma of someone who's been with God. Someone who doesn't just go through the motions, but walks in purpose. Someone who doesn't react impulsively, but responds with discernment. That's what daily prayer does. It changes your perspective, reshapes your priorities, and renews your purpose. All before the world has a chance to shape you first. And the more you cultivate this rhythm, the more you'll notice how deeply prayer transforms even the simplest moments. You'll start to see every conversation as an opportunity, every delay as a possible divine redirection, every challenge as a classroom for trust, because you're no longer walking blindly into your day, you're walking with God. There's a quiet confidence that comes from that kind of companionship, not arrogance, not apathy, but assurance. You don't have to know every step. You just have to know who's leading you. And that knowing will calm storms before they even begin to rise. Prayer also humbles you. It reminds you that while your calendar might be full, your control is limited. That no matter how carefully you plan, only God sees the full picture. And when you begin your day by surrendering to His wisdom, His timing, His ways, you free yourself from the weight of having to figure it all out. Instead of striving, you listen. Instead of rushing, you breathe. Instead of reacting, you remember you already gave this day to God. He's in it, He's over it, and He'll walk you through it, moment by moment. So let prayer be your first habit, not your fallback. Let it be your posture, not your panic. Let it be the way you wake your soul, the way you ready your heart, the way you say, Lord, I trust you more than I trust me. Because when you give God your first moments, He multiplies them. He turns your ordinary into opportunity, your weariness into wonder, your uncertainty into unshakable peace. That's the miracle of morning prayer. It doesn't just start your day, it transforms it. And through it, God transforms you. As you continue the rhythm of morning prayer, you begin to realize something profound. Your relationship with God is no longer just a part of your day. It becomes the foundation of everything you do. Those first few moments in prayer are no longer just preparation. They are a declaration that you are choosing to live from the presence of God. You're no longer seeking help only in moments of crisis. You're walking in constant communion with the one who never leaves your side. And from that sacred place, transformation begins. You stop starting your day with worry and begin it with trust. You no longer view situations through the lens of anxiety, but through the lens of hope. Because you've already spoken to the one who holds all things in His hands, and that shifts how you move through the world. That change doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't need to be announced. But the people around you will notice. They'll see the calm in how you respond, the gentleness in your tone, the thoughtfulness in your presence. And when they ask how you remain steady in the chaos, your answer will be simple. I start each day with God. Starting with prayer is how you open your heart to real life. It's how you say, I'm not enough on my own, but you are. I don't know everything, but you do. I can't control the world, but I trust the one who does. In a culture that demands you always be strong, always be in control, always have the answers, choosing to begin your day in humble surrender is the most powerful decision you can make. And as you do it daily, your soul won't just be protected, it will be nourished. In your weariness, you'll find rest in His presence. In your confusion, you'll find clarity in His voice. In your disappointments, you'll be reminded that hope is not found in outcomes, but in the living relationship you have with a faithful God. Gradually, prayer stops being something you do. It becomes who you are. You don't just say prayers, you live prayerfully, aware, connected, open. The line between sacred and ordinary disappears, and you start to recognize that every moment can be holy when it flows from a heart that sought Him first. This is the invitation of morning prayer. Not to add one more task to your list, but to root your life in the one who already knows what the day will hold. To wake up not with stress, but with surrender. To choose peace over pressure. To remember that your greatest strength comes not from how prepared you are, but from how present He is. So tomorrow, when the alarm goes off, before the demands come rushing in, take one moment. Just one breath, one quiet whisper. God, I give this day to you. And let that moment carry you through whatever the day brings. With grace, with strength, and with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that the first step was the most important one. You prayed first. And because of that, everything changed. In the end, this is not just about starting your day with prayer. It's about living your entire life from the posture that prayer creates. A posture of peace, of surrender, of connection. It's about building a relationship with God that becomes your anchor through every storm, your compass in every decision, your comfort in every quiet moment. When you begin your day by speaking to the one who holds it all, you walk differently, you think differently, you live differently. Every morning becomes a fresh beginning. Not because your circumstances change overnight, but because your soul begins to understand that peace isn't found in perfection, it's found in presence. The presence of a God who meets you where you are, loves you as you are, and leads you into who you're meant to become. That kind of transformation doesn't come from motivation, it comes from intimacy. And intimacy is cultivated in prayer, especially in those first quiet moments of the day. If you've ever wondered where to begin again, begin with prayer. If you felt far from God, start with a whisper. If your heart is tired, let your surrender be your strength. Because when you place the beginning of your day into His hands, you're making more than a spiritual choice. You're making an eternal investment. And no matter how busy life gets, how unpredictable the road becomes, this habit, this sacred rhythm of praying first will always bring you back to center, back to peace, back to purpose, back to the quiet whisper that says you're not alone. Even when your mornings aren't perfect, even when your words feel weak, even when your heart doesn't have the energy to form full sentences, God hears it all, because He's not looking for eloquence, He's looking for you. And when you show up, He will too. So let prayer be your beginning, again and again. Let it rise before your plans do. Let it stretch beyond your needs and into your worship. Let it be the way you build your inner world before stepping out into the external one. Because the truth is, what begins with God ends with peace, and there is no better way to live. If this message has stirred something in you, if it's reminded you of what really matters, don't stop here. We invite you to continue this journey with us. At Think Fresh Daily, we're creating a space for your soul to breathe. A place where truth is spoken gently, where peace is pursued intentionally, and where God is always the center of the conversation. Our next episodes will dive even deeper into how to live a prayer-led life, not just in the morning, but in the chaos of everyday challenges, in moments of doubt, in relationships that stretch your patience, and in seasons where silence feels louder than answers. You'll learn how to develop a spiritual rhythm that doesn't depend on emotion, but is rooted in discipline and love. You'll hear stories of faith that grew stronger through storms. You'll receive practical tools to build consistency in your spiritual life. You'll discover how God speaks through stillness, how He restores through surrender, and how His voice becomes clearer when you learn to quiet everything else. So if this video spoke to your heart, we encourage you to subscribe and stay connected. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the next message. Share it with someone who's walking through a season of overwhelm. Send it to the friend who's looking for clarity, for calm, for God. Because we believe that when one person starts their day with prayer, it doesn't just change their day, it changes the world around them. It changes homes, workplaces, families, and futures. And when we all begin from the same place, the presence of God, we begin to move as one body with one spirit toward one purpose, to know Him and make Him known. We're honored to walk alongside you. Whether you're brand new to faith or decades into your journey, you are welcome here. You are seen, valued, and deeply loved, not just by us, but by the God who created you. So come back. Join us in the next video as we continue to seek His voice before the noise. Let's keep choosing stillness before speed, surrender before striving. Let's become a community that prays first every single day, not just because we want God to bless our steps, but because we don't want to take a single step without Him. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning. We'll see you in the next video. Until then, pray first, stay rooted, and remember, peace always starts in His presence. Subscribe, share, grow with us here at Think Fresh Daily.